excited to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining in. Good to see some familiar faces, some new faces as well. For those of you who are comfortable, please turn on your videos so that we can have some identity relevant to your name. But yeah, really excited to have all of you here. I hope everyone is doing well. Would love to know where all of you are joining from. Please drop it in the chat. Okay, amazing. Bangalore is somehow always on the top of it. That's great. Um, so we'll shortly start off. I think we have almost everyone in here, and more people would be joining in. But more importantly, we do have the speaker in here already. So Aditi Kothari is here, who would be taking over today's session. For those of you who are new to the session, for those of you who are not from the Rize community, hello everyone. I am Aditi Gera. I look after the Rize community as a whole. We are building Razorpay Rize as a startup support program, which aims to support early stage founders to launch their startups, grow it, and take it to MVP in the first place. How we do it is through three core offerings, which happens to be Rize Start, where we help you get your company incorporated. Second happens to be Rize Tool, which helps you in your day-to-day operations of your business. And third happens to be the Rize community, where we have amazing founders in place who become a support avenue for all of for each other essentially. So to start off with the session, we decided to have a session over building MVPs using no-code tools, because we realized that as early stage founders, a lot of you lack engineering bandwidth in your teams, and it's important for all of you to as well at the same time understand how you can still go about launching your products without having that in place. Why we thought of keeping it as an open session was also because we wanted to extend it to audience beyond the Rize community, because we feel that this topic happens to be an essential one in today's world. And we have our in-house expert, more importantly, Aditi Kothari, who has been working as a PM2 at Razorpay Rize. She has been leading Razorpay Rize from day one and has been doing tremendous job in it. But at the same time, she's also a no-code expert who runs her own CBC for no-code, and she has taught more than 500 people about no-code tools. So that's something we thought would be very valuable to the community and all of you at the same time. So Aditi, over to you. I am really excited for this session, and I'm sure you have amazing content in place for everything relevant to no-code. So yes, over to you. I think we can start off.
Thanks, Aditi. Thanks for the introduction. And thank you everyone on this call for joining today. Before we begin, I just have a quick question to ask. So show of hands, actually you might just raise your hands on Zoom. If you have ever faced this situation where you had this amazing idea that you wanted to work on, but couldn't because you felt constrained due to lack of engineering expertise. Um, okay, let's see who all are raising their hands. Okay, that's quite a few people. So I believe this is a common experience where people who come from non-tech backgrounds might have a great idea but are not able to translate it into a functional application or a product. So if you are one such person, you have made the right choice by joining today's session, because this is the exact problem we'll address today, and find a way to overcome this constraint, so that going forward you don't feel powerless when you have a great idea, and you feel empowered to translate your own ideas into fully functional applications. So yes, let's get started. So as Aditi mentioned, I work as a product manager at Razorpay and currently building Razorpay Rize, which is our startup program. On the side, I also work as a no-code instructor on various platforms. And previously, I've worked at Bounce, which was a dockless scooter rental startup based out of Bangalore. That is where I actually was first introduced to no-code tools. And I'll talk about it in more detail towards the later part of this session. So what's the agenda? What are we going to discuss today? So the first one is that we'll discuss, what is no code and its possibilities. The second thing that we are going to discuss is the no code stack, and there are so many no code tools available today. How do you even choose the best one? And lastly, we'll discuss two interesting case studies from using no code at Razorpay and Bounce. So yeah, let's get started. Before we talk about no code, let's talk about what is a MVP and why should we care about an MVP, right? So MVP is a product just enough to be used by your potential customers to help you validate your hypothesis. So you might think that this is a valid problem for a particular audience, and I should go ahead solve this problem. But before you do that at a full scale, you should validate your idea. You should see if it's the first problem on the list of your potential customers or the 10th problem. um, Also, what it is not is a product with a plethora of features demonstrating your whole idea. You don't need to like add everything that you've thought of building in your MVP. It just has to be enough to validate your idea. And what do you measure when you are building an MVP? You actually measure intent. And intent basically means, does your product solve a significant problem faced by your customers? And will your customers pay to use your product? So, yeah, you basically measure intent of using the product and paying for it. And what matters the most when building a MVP is velocity. You should be able to ship fast, to learn fast, and gather insights, and use those insights to iterate faster. Because if you get, let's say, an insight that probably this is not the right way to solve this problem, or this problem is not big enough, you should be able to pivot and move to the next best thing sooner than later. So these are the things that matter, when thinking of launching or building an MVP. And now we are going to talk about how no-code tools can help you build a MVP and validate your ideas. So what is no-code? Does it mean that there's no code produced and application is working without code? Well, we'll talk about that. No code means that you visually code to build applications, and code is produced in the background when you do that. So you don't have to type code, you actually code visually, and it's produced in the background. Um, which doesn't mean that the website or application is working without code. It's just a different way of generating code. I mean, if code today can convert speech to text, there can be code that writes code for you. That is like the idea behind no code tools. That why not write code which will generate code, for a lot of use cases, for a lot of known problems. And let's talk about some of the possibilities of no code tools. Everything you see on this slide and beyond is something that no code tools can build today. You can use them for building landing pages, for chatbot, for setting up payments, for building mobile apps, automations, setting up a marketplace, an online store, and so much more. So as the time passes, there are so many things that no code tools can do, and in the last 5 years, this sector has grown tremendously. And we'll also talk about some of the tools. Um, so this image is actually a list of a few no-code tools, but not exhaustive. But this gives you a sense of, what no-code tools can do today. And under every category, there are so many of them available. So how, there's a tech stack. There are technologies for building front end. There's technology for building back end. There are different technologies for setting up a database in context of programming. Similarly, in context of no code, there are different tools which solve different use cases. For example, for database, you could use something like an Airtable or a Google Sheets. For building, website, you can use something like Card. Wix or Webflow. For setting up your own store, you can use Shopify. So this image actually, what this image tries to convey is that, these are multiple no-code tools under multiple categories. And the best part about them is that they all work really well together. So when I say work well together, I mean that something like a Webflow would integrate seamlessly with an Airtable, and you can use Zapier to connect both of them. So most of the good no-code tools also support various integrations. So this is just like a small snippet of how the no-code landscape looks like. But like I said, this is not exhaustive. There are plenty of more no-code tools that aren't mentioned here. And you saw so many no-code tools, right? How do you choose the best one, the one that works perfectly for your use case? The first step is to define the problem statement. Only when you know your requirements exhaustively, you can find out what no-code tool would suit your use case the best. So define the problem statement, then choose the tool with the largest community. This will help you in finding answers to your questions in the community forum whenever you are stuck. So if the community is large enough, they might have already posted solutions to a lot of things that you might be looking for. So largest community means more support. And that's why you should choose the tool which has the largest community. And lastly, pick the one which integrates with multiple other no-code tools. This matters because more often you will see that not one no-code tool alone can solve your use case. You might have to use multiple of them together. And when that happens, you would want that the integration is out of the box and seamless. So these are the three things to think of while choosing the no-code tool for your particular problem statement. Important question, should you always use no-code tools, or what are the specific situations when you should? First one is obvious, when you have lack of engineering bandwidth. So you may have no engineers in your team, or you may just not have enough to work on a particular problem statement. Secondly, when you need to ship with high velocity, no-code actually gives you a lot of flexibility while building things like landing pages, building a chatbot, because so many things are like already solved and is available out of the box. You don't have to spend a lot of time in development, and it actually lets you ship way faster than compared to the traditional way of programming. And lastly, obviously, when you are building a MVP, you don't know whether your hypothesis is valid or not. And the whole reason of building an MVP is to validate the hypothesis. And in that situation, you may not want to spend a lot of time of your team or yourself unless you have gotten some early signs that this product would work. So these are the three situations when you should use no-code tools. We'll talk about interesting case study. Uh, Arnav, I think you have raised your hand. We'll have dedicated time for Q&A towards the end. We'll at least spend like 20 to 30 minutes. So let's address your question towards the end. So how Bounce built its entire internal tooling system without a single dedicated engineer. So this goes back to 2019 when I was working at Bounce, and whenever we had to, prioritize some feature or a product, we would always look at whether it's customer facing or internal facing. So whether we are building it for our end customers who actually ride our scooters, or we are building for an internal team like customer support, marketing, etc. And because it totally makes sense to prioritize products that would actually help the end user, we often weren't figure out enough engineering bandwidth for building internal tools. That is when we took the no code slash low code route and built all the internal tools using a low code tool. which helped us build 10x faster. We used one particular loco tool, which I'll talk about, and we were able to build 80 plus internal dashboards. We use Retool, which is a logo tool for building internal tools. And here are some of the use cases we used it for. So for building operations and finance tools, for example, refund requesting and processing tool, um, tools for the marketing team to generate coupon codes, tools for the customer support team for KYC verification. Let me actually show you how Retool looks like, because we have been talking a lot about no-code tools. Let's go and actually see how does one no-code tool look like. So I've already kept one of the apps I built open. So this is how this is a canvas where you can build your application. This is how the builder looks like. So on the right, you have ready to use components. You can insert a table, a button, a chart, an image. Um, Traditionally, you would have to write code for inserting or just building each of these components, but here they are just readily available. And to add functionality to each of the components, you can add queries. It supports Postgres. It supports REST query, GraphQL. For you can integrate APIs. You can connect your database. All that is possible. So it might for folks who are not from a tech background, this part might seem a bit complicated. But trust me, once you read through a few resources, it's pretty simple to understand this. And if I click on preview, you can see how this app actually looks like. So it's a simple estimation fact sheet where, often for consulting roles and for product management roles, in the interview, you are asked questions around guesstimates. So that is when these numbers come handy. So you can just filter by a category, let's say digital, and you can see number of smartphone users in India, um, expectancy and age. You can see it for various genders across various countries. And if you have a particular number or a particular fact that is not mentioned here, you can submit. So this is a form to submit that value. So this is a very simple app, completely built without coding. And you might do the same thing probably on a Google Sheet, but then you wouldn't have so much control over your data. And you would also would have to make it public, and it wouldn't have like a UI, like a user interface over here. So yes, this is the leverage you get when you use tools like Retool. Going back to my presentation. The second interesting case study that I want to talk about is how we built Razorpay Rize using no-code tools in just 3 days. So just to clarify, this was sometime back in September when we did our first closed beta launch. Um, and we had been discussing and strategizing the whole startup program, and it was time that we did a soft launch to a close group of audience. And we wanted to take the landing page, the registration form, the whole application flow, evaluation of startups, everything live. And for all of these things, we use no-code tools, but I'll talk about one particular out of them. So we took help from one engineer. We used one low-code / no-code tool and built a fully functional application. And the tool we used was Webflow. Let me show you how it actually looks. So I'm sure a lot of you must have seen Razorpay Rize's website, but this is how it looks on Webflow. So on the left-hand side, you'll see there are components, again, very similar to how Retool had it. So you can just drag and drop these components to create the website. This is the canvas where the website is created and you can visually see it. So, notice that the keyword visually, everything you do is visually. You don't have to write code. It's essentially what you see is what you get. So, and on the right, there's the designer which you can use to design different components. And this is how the fully ready product looks like. This is the landing page. We also used other no-code tools to set up, a bunch of other things like a dashboard to evaluate all the applications we are getting, automations to send emails whenever an application moves from one stage to the other. This was done using Retool and Zapier and Google Sheets. So yes, no code has been a part of the RISE program. It's helped us do a lot of things in a very short amount of time. Um, we strongly believe that no-code tools can be super powerful for founders, especially early stage founders, to validate their initial idea and to ship faster without depending on engineers at, at the start at least. And that is why, as part of the program, we have also curated a few no-code and low-code tools across which we offer credits for founders to be able to use them. Here's a list of a few, and this list is ever growing. We keep adding more tools every month. So this is what any Razorpay Rize founder gets to use once they are part of the program. So even Razorpay actually has a stack of no-code tools. So the first one is payment pages. The idea is that you should be able to collect payment from your customers without writing a single line of code. So payment pages is basically you can set up your payment page, which is like fully customizable. You can add details about why you are collecting the payment and what is it for. You can add a custom amount. You can share the page with your customers. They can go there, read about what is the offering, go ahead and make a payment. And all this can be done without writing a single line of code. The second one is payment links. So this is basically you can generate a URL, which again you can share with your customers. And without any coding, you can again accept payments. So this is like a shareable link. You can send them over an email, SMS, whatever communication channel works best for you. Lastly, payment buttons. I think a lot of you must have seen this on various websites. So you can customize a button, put custom text, put this button on your website. And whenever someone clicks on this button, um, a custom amount will be added to the amount that you wish to collect, and the payment gateway will be triggered, and the customer can seamlessly go and pay, and the merchant can collect the payment from the customers. So Razorpay has tried to make the entire payment collection seamless without having to write code for it. And these are the three offerings that we have for you to be able to do that. There is another interesting thing that we do is so Razorpay integrates with Zapier. Zapier basically connects over 3,000 tools with each other, which means that you can take data from one product or tool to the other to do a particular action. Just to give a simple example out of this context, for easier understanding, let's say you use Zapier to integrate Google Sheets with Gmail. You could do something like whenever a row in a Google Sheet is updated, an email is sent. So let's say you are managing your customer data for a small edtech company on Google Sheets. So whenever you onboard a new customer and you mark their status as onboarded on the Google Sheet, you can trigger an email directly. So it's all automated, and the automation is being powered by Zapier. So Zapier is enabling data exchange between Google Sheets and Gmail. Similarly, between Razorpay and any other tool, for example, here are some use cases mentioned. You can, once the payment is completed, you can get data from Razorpay that the payment is completed, and you can send an email using MailChimp or Gmail. If the payment fails, you can send a payment failure email. So the fact that Zapier is the fact that Razorpay is one of the app that connects with Zapier, it opens so many possibilities of building multiple automations linked to other tools. So this is something you should definitely check out if you are, setting up payments. Um, Lastly, for all the Rise founders, we are setting up office hours every weekday, Monday to Friday, from 4 to 5 p.m. If you, everybody on this call has, different use cases. And if you want to discuss and brainstorm how to use no-code tools to, actually build your application, I would be more than happy to have a chat. And the details and the link to block time will be posted on the community. So keep a tab when, Aditi would be posting it. That's it. That's all from my end.